本命は元締めの祭りやフェスタ。海王類の海難事故で死んだはずのロジャー時代の大物海賊。
おまけにこいつもだ。
What's up, everybody? You got some Smoker versus Enel gameplay. This is from my locals playthrough of Smoker. This is post starter deck, so we got a lot of fun new cards in this deck. We've got Tashigi, 5-cost Tashigi. Let's trash some awesome opponents' characters. Gets around those KO abilities, as well as the new Sengoku here from the starter deck. Sengoku being just like a fantastic way to be able to just cycle through your hand. The Navy package typically has some uncounterable cards like the Hina sitting off to the corner there. Those Hinas are actually in my deck, but they're the Altard version. We're going to go ahead and start off with a swing with 7k with lead and then into a brand new. We ended up going first against Enel. I think Enel ended up winning the dice roll and chose to go second, which is fine with me, especially with them going flampe on turn 1. One of my best tips for playing Smoker is just, if they have a 1-drop on board, just leave it there. Don't even attempt to kill it. Don't even attempt to do anything to it, because that is your fodder for Smoker's ability. If Smoker doesn't need to, if you don't need the additional minus on any other character to destroy them, you can just keep minusing on that 1 cost to get a 0 cost to continue to allow Smoker to be 1k. Now you'll see one thing that I'm going to continue to potentially do throughout this game is leave that 1k counter die on my leader. That does not mean that I'm a 6k leader on both turns. I'm just a 6k leader on my own turn. Smoker is what I like to say a legacy leader, a legacy black leader, as he was one of the first black leaders coming out in OP02. So because of that, he requires a little bit more investment to get that -1 off. So you do have to attach a Don to him to give something -1. Whereas nowadays, you know, all these new players, they get to have Lucci. Lucci, you just attack, and he enables your trash, and he minuses 1. Wow, what a deal. Even Sakazuki could attack in -1, but good old Smokey here. Smokey does require some Dawn commitment to get that -1 off, though that additional 1000 power is pretty awesome here. Playing out 2 brand news in a row and just getting as aggressive as possible here. We're going to go ahead and swing. I think this turn we're going to potentially, so we're just going to -1 on the Charlotte, and then swing 7k, so 5k, 7k, as well as a brand new to find some additional toys to hand. I'm still sitting at 5 life here. I'm going to try to stay relatively healthy. Now, I could just take 1 hit if necessary, but I don't want to go any further down just in case my opponent, I don't see Tashigi, and then I have to KO the Kikunoju across the field there. But yeah, so far this does kind of cause me to get Gadatsu'd pretty easily. So in hindsight, I probably should have at least taken 1 hit to go down to 4 life. That way, if I do find my Tashigis aren't going to be free fodder for the Gadatsu, as Tashigi is a 5-cost. Speaking of Tashigi, we did end up seeing one in hand here. We do have our late game set up. We ended up keeping the hand for the Isho being one of the best cards to rip 2 cards out of Enel's hand. Enel typically likes to stay at a pretty high hand size and a pretty low life total. So Isho allowing me both the satisfaction of ripping 2 really good cards out of my opponent's hand, as well as being an additional outlet for minusing, as he does a -3 cost across the board when you have 1 Dawn attached. Pretty great card here. We're just going to continue, just like I said, we're going to continue to just constantly -1 that Charlotte, and we're going to just swing. We end up swinging at Kikunojo there. That was a very safe attack, because in this situation, my opponent doesn't have, I don't have enough, least amount of life, right? You need 3 or less life for Kikunojo to gain them a life. Now, I did end up kind of misplaying. I got a little too excited to swing into that Kikunojo. What I could have done instead is sent that to life and then played out the Tashigi, which I have the 5 Dawn up with, to KO that Gadatsu, or not the Gadatsu, the Kikunojo. I had ideas. Ultimately, I ended up pivoting to a Borsellino, and which is a fine play. Borsellino is going to be able to protect me if my opponent starts to fill up a very large board, as Borsellino is KO proof. Opponent's just going to play out a Katakuri, going to put the Flampe back on life there. Flampe going back to hand allows Enel to potentially draw additional cards, as well as healing himself back up to 3. Opponent's going to go ahead and swing 5 at lead, and I am just going to block it. Opponent's going to swing 6 at lead. I'm going to counter out of it because I just want to stay as healthy as possible. Enel's strategy is usually to starve. Now, the newer Enels don't really to starve these days. especially against black decks. You kind of just want to kill them as fast as possible, but I'm kind of denying my opponent that right here, allowing myself to stabilize in the later game here as I'm up to my, I think, 9 Dawn turn here. We're pulling the Isho to the front. My opponent, I think, is at 5 cards in hand, and I know there's the Flampe is on top, and I know my opponent wants that Flampe, right? Add the Flampe back to hand. It's a 2k for hand. Also can play it out and add up a card to hand as well, which is very, very juicy for Enel. Enel wants to have as many cards as possible, so we're just going to send a 5k at lead, kind of baiting my opponent potentially into giving me the Isho play, but my opponent does not see. He sees right through my play, and instead I'm just going to play out the Rebecca. Rebecca is going to find me back something. It's going to find back a Hina. Hina is going to come down, and we're going to apply -4 to the Katakuri, and then I have a nice amount of 5 Dawn left for that Tashigi to come down. Tashigi's specifically tied to Smoker, so on play, if you have Smoker as your leader, you can -4 something, and then activate main. If you played this turn, trash a 0 cost character. So Katakuri is out of here. If you're this far into the video and you're listening to me talk still, you should definitely subscribe. We release gameplay like this pretty often throughout the week. I try to leverage about 4-ish videos a week, sometimes 5, just kind of going through my thought process. We're learning these leaders together. I try to offer some tips, but also point out some of my misplays as I'm walking back through this gameplay. Additionally, I do have a video out right now. Now, it won't be out. The giveaway is still available, but I did open a few boxes of the best, so the PRB01 set. And I have a giveaway tucked in the middle of that video. So about halfway through the video, I start to mention a giveaway. So if you check that video out, I have some pretty cool pools, some pretty cool stories of some of the cards that I opened. So if you like watching people open stuff, you can just set it up in the background. It's like a podcast, right? You can listen to it. But definitely get on board for that giveaway, because I'm giving away some pretty awesome competitive One Piece cards. And we're just going to continue to fuss with the camera as my opponent just decides to try to clear some of my board. So he goes 9k. I end up, I think, blocking that, and then he just kills my Hina with the Gadatsu. Pretty awkward turn for my opponent, as they just kind of left 4 Dawn open. Now I'm kind of sitting at the 10 Dawn turn. No Moria. I do have a Jack I could potentially play, and I think that Jack will come down eventually with that Ice Age to allow me to potentially KO one of my opponent's bigger threats. Enel's kind of top end is around 9 to 10. If he plays down a Yamato with leader ability, I'll be able to KO a 9 cost card or a Katakuri. So we're going to bait my opponent again. We're going to go 5k lead. My opponent snap takes it this time, which puts my opponent up to 6 cards in hand. So I just had to be a little patient and wait another turn. There's me getting really excited. I always get super excited when I play out Isho to rip some cards out of, especially Enel's hand. End up hitting the Kingdom Come, which is a KO spell for my Isho, which I'm glad to rip out of hand, and then a 2k counter. 1 Dawn left here. We're going to just go ahead and swing 7k at lead. And then we might commit the Borsalino, or we might just keep the Borsalino up as a potential block target, because, it's nice to keep Tashigi alive. Speaking of Tashigi no longer being alive, I end up hitting a Nami trigger, Onami, to KO a 5 or less. At the time, my opponent did elect to kill the Tashigi, though he could have also taken out the Borsalino. Borsalino's effect prevents your opponent from KOing it on their turn, but not on my turn, so he was not KO proof. Opponent's just going to play out a ace, going to go ahead and gain a life, and then swing at my leader. I'm just going to go ahead and take that. That is the first hit of the game that I've taken. I'm going to go and just start taking the next one, as I'm... my hand was getting a little light on counter, and I kind of wanted to keep that Kobe in case I needed it to kill the ace here, and I might end up using it, potentially. And then I'll go ahead and counter out of the last set. I don't want to go to 2 at this point, but I did end up finally taking my first 2 hits of the game. We do see a Gecko Moria here. Gecko Moria in this deck is a little bit different. So if you play Gecko Moria and Lucci, you're going to get back, you can do the Rebecca Spandine Lucci combo. You've got Lucci coming in, right? So Lucci KOs a 1 and a 2, whereas Smoker, the only way that you can really KO anything is if you directly put a Brook or Kobe into play with some additional minusing effects to be able to KO something. Otherwise, you're just going to put like a Borsalino into play. But the best combo is to go Rebecca into Kobe or Rebecca into Brook, and then like a 1 cost being either you could do brand new, so to do additional surges for Navy cards. You could do the Sengoku to try to clean up your hand a little bit to draw some additional card advantage, or just go for the Suru to help with additional minusing. Here we're just going to play out the brand new here. So we're going to Gecko Moria into Rebecca brand new. Always going to do the brand new first, as brand new is going to dump some stuff in my trash, which gives me some additional options. and we're gonna end up taking the Hina here, and then we're going to activate Rebecca. Rebecca is likely gonna go find that Kobe. Okay, Rebecca instead. Oh yeah, I already have a Kobe in hand, so we're gonna add the Tashiki to hand, and then we're gonna use the Kobe. Kobe's gonna come out and discard that Hina that I picked up, because Kobe is one of those Navy cards that does require you trashing a card from hand, and then I'll KO with 3 or less to clear off that ace. Now we're gonna send 9k into Garatsu, and my opponent now has no board. He's at 2 life, only a few cards in hand. I have 3 cards in hand, 3 life, and a Rebecca on, and 2 blockers on field, as well as 2 big old characters. I'm feeling pretty confident at this spot. Once you can start to control the board against Enel, right? That's what Enel wants to do, control the board. But if you can control the board, you're in like a fantastic spot. And that's kind of how you beat Enel with black, right? You just have to go higher than them, play out your big threats, try to control their board. And you can see with my hand, with the Tashiki in hand, I have some way to potentially deal with something else potentially. Opponent does just go ahead and play out the Kingdom Come. Kingdom Come does trash my opponent's life cards until they're at 1. So it does end up losing a Gangbeji off the top. And then opponent's just going to swing 9k at lead. And I think we're just going to take that. That does feed me another Rebecca. Rebecca is pretty nice at this point. But my opponent basically took a whole turn off. Which I'm happy to see. And I've got another Gecko Moria in hand, which I don't have any Rebecca targets in yard. So I would have to find something else. As I've only seen 2 Rebeccas, there was 1 in life, and then now there's 1 on the field, and I didn't block with it the turn before. Instead, we're just going to go ahead and swing a 7k lead here. Opponent only had, I think, 4 cards in hand at this time, and so I kind of saw a decent window to do it. Opponent's going to use an Onami to KO my Rebecca. Ultimately, I think that was a mistake, as they could have just KO'd my Kobe, which is now going to swing 8k at lead. Opponent's going to take that. I think I'm just going to position it to be able to go 9k, 9k. I am not in a position where I'm going to lose. An opponent plays a Kiku Nojo and then shows me that he's only got 2k counter in hand, and that cleans up the game. That is Smoker versus Enel. Smoker able to clean it up. Enel kind of fumbled at the top end. But other than that, if you enjoy this type of gameplay, definitely subscribe, give this video a like. Tell me if you've played Smoker, how you're enjoying it. I think it's pretty fun. But with that in mind, have a good day, everybody.